The silence had persisted for 6 months. 6 months of routine scans, of monitoring the vast emptiness between stars, of cataloging the constant background radiation that permeated the cosmos. 6 months in which Dr. Elena Vasquez had begun to wonder if humanity would ever hear from anyone else in the galaxy. Luna Station hung in orbit above Earth, its massive detection arrays constantly sweeping the darkness. As Earth's foremost xenocommunications facility, the station represented humanity's ears to the universe. And those ears had heard nothing but static for what felt like an eternity. Elena sipped her coffee, the familiar ritual offering a momentary comfort as she monitored her console. The display showed nothing unusual. Cosmic background radiation at expected levels. No anomalous signals. No deviations from baseline. Just another quiet day in the endless vigil. "Anything interesting today, Dr. Vasquez?" The voice belonged to Technician Rivera, who had just arrived for his shift. "Same as yesterday," Elena replied, setting down her coffee. "And the day before that. And the 6 months before that." Rivera chuckled. "Maybe the aliens are shy. Or maybe we're alone after all," Elena said, though she didn't believe it. The mathematics of probability suggested otherwise. Too many stars. Too many planets. Someone else had to be out there. The question was whether humanity would ever make contact. 3 years earlier, Earth had detected its first definitive alien transmission, a series of mathematical sequences from the Altian civilization. The discovery had sent shockwaves through human society. We were not alone. But after the initial exchange of basic information, the Altians had suddenly gone silent, refusing further communication except through diplomatic channels at the distant Galactic Council, a body that had, thus far, denied Earth full membership. From what little information had trickled back to Earth, the galaxy operated under strict, non-interference policies. Older civilizations watched younger ones develop, but rarely intervened. Earth, being a death world with high gravity and aggressive apex predators that had shaped human evolution, was viewed with particular caution. Humans were seen as potentially dangerous, quick to anger, quick to fight, quick to defend. The Council kept them at arm's length, observing but not engaging. This policy of isolation chafed at Earth's leadership. Admiral Marcus Cole, head of Earth Command, had repeatedly argued for a more assertive human presence in galactic affairs. "They're treating us like children," he had declared in his last transmission to Luna Station. "Or like animals they're afraid might bite." Elena understood his frustration. As the lead communication specialist at Luna Station, she had dedicated her career to establishing contact with alien civilizations. The silence felt like failure. At 14:32 station time, everything changed. The alarm blared. Not just one system, but 17 separate frequency monitors triggering simultaneously. Elena jolted upright, coffee forgotten as her hands flew across the console. "What is it?" Rivera called out, rushing to his station. "Multiple incoming transmissions," Elena replied, her voice tense with concentration. "All on different frequencies, all from the same source." The source was the Cathoran system, approximately 30 light-years from Earth. The signals were coming in faster than the translation matrix could process them. Images flickered across the screen, alien faces, structures crumbling, what appeared to be ships of some kind, and overlaid on everything. A clear pattern that required no translation. 3 short pulses, 3 long pulses, 3 short pulses. SOS, the universal distress signal. "Get me Earth Command," Elena ordered, her fingers flying over the controls to capture and analyze the incoming data. "Priority Alpha, now." As Rivera established the connection, Elena focused on the signals. The translation matrix was beginning to parse the alien language. Clearly, not Altian, but something new. Fragments appeared on her screen. "Please help. They come for us all. 3 billion souls. 6 hours until..." The Ravagers. Elena's heart raced. This wasn't just a greeting or a mathematical sequence. This was a desperate plea for help. Admiral Cole's face appeared on the main view screen, his expression grim. Dr. Vasquez, I understand we have an incoming transmission. More than one, Admiral, Elena replied, transferring the data to Earth Command. 17 simultaneous distress calls from the Cathoran system. They're under attack, or about to be, something called the Ravagers. Cole's eyes narrowed as he scanned the incoming data. Analysis? The translation is still incomplete, but they're definitely asking for help. They mention 3 billion lives at stake and a 6-hour countdown. I'm seeing images of what might be an invasion force approaching their system. Cole was silent for a long moment, processing the information. Keep working on that translation, Doctor. I'm convening the Terran High Council immediately. He paused. This changes everything. The connection ended, and Elena turned back to the incoming signals with renewed urgency. As more of the message became clear, so did the horror of the situation. The Cathorans, a peaceful species of scientists and artists, had detected a massive fleet approaching their homeworld. The Ravager Collective, as they called themselves, had already destroyed the Cathoran outer colonies. The main planet was next. According to the fragmentary information, the Cathorans had already appealed to the Galactic Council for help. Their pleas had been denied under the policy of non-interference. Now, with nowhere else to turn, they were broadcasting on all frequencies, hoping anyone would answer. Anyone had turned out to be humanity. The next 6 hours passed in a blur of activity. Elena remained at her station, coordinating with Earth Command as the Terran High Council debated their response. Through it all, the Cathoran transmissions continued, increasingly desperate, increasingly detailed. The Ravagers, it seemed, were not interested in conquest or subjugation. They were harvesters, stripping planets of resources and leaving nothing behind. The Cathorans were not the first to fall victim to them, but they might be the first to receive help, if Earth decided to act. At exactly 2032 station time, Admiral Cole reappeared on the main view screen. His face showed the strain of the past hours, but there was determination in his eyes. Dr. Vasquez, I need you to send a message to the Cathorans, he said. Tell them help is coming. Elena's hands paused over the console. Sir? The Council has voted. We're mobilizing the fleet. 120 ships. Everything we can spare. I'll be commanding from the TES Resolute. Elena stared at him. Admiral, that's the Galactic Council. Has abandoned them to die, Cole finished. We won't do the same. Prepare for transfer, Doctor. You're coming with us. Your expertise with the Cathoran language will be essential. Yes, sir, Elena replied, the enormity of the decision settling over her. Earth was about to directly violate galactic non-interference protocols to save an alien civilization they had never even met. And she would be part of it. As Elena composed the response to the Cathorans, she couldn't help but wonder, was this the moment humanity proved the Council's fears correct? Or was it the moment they proved that being dangerous wasn't always a bad thing, especially when you were dangerous to those who preyed on the innocent? The message was simple. Cathora, this is Earth. We hear you. Hold on, we're coming. The response came almost immediately, a burst of what the translation matrix identified as gratitude, hope, and disbelief. The Cathorans had never expected anyone to answer, much less to offer help. Within 2 hours, Elena had been transported from Luna Station to the TES Resolute, Admiral Cole's flagship and the largest vessel in Earth's fleet. The massive dreadnought, along with dozens of other warships, hung in Earth orbit, preparing for the jump to hyperspace. Elena found herself in the ship's command center, surrounded by military personnel who regarded her with a mixture of curiosity and respect. She felt out of place in her civilian clothes amid the uniformed officers. but there had been no time for anything but the most basic preparation. Dr. Vasquez, Admiral Cole, strode into the command center, his presence immediately commanding attention. "Welcome aboard. I apologize for the rushed circumstances." "No apology necessary, Admiral," Elena replied. "I understand the urgency." Cole nodded grimly. "Then you understand more than most. Walk with me." He led her to a tactical display showing the disposition of Earth's fleet. 120 ships of various classes, from massive dreadnoughts like the Resolute to swift destroyers and nimble corvettes. "This is everything we can spare without leaving Earth defenseless," Cole explained. "Based on the Thorin transmissions, we estimate the Ravager fleet at approximately 800 vessels." Elena felt her breath catch. 800 against 120? Those are impossible odds. "Perhaps," Cole replied, his voice steady. "But we have advantages they don't know about. Earth is a high-gravity world, which means our ships are built stronger. Our weapons are designed to function in environments that would crush most alien technology. And our people." He smiled thinly. "Well, we're from a death world. We're used to fighting against the odds." Elena understood what he wasn't saying. This was why the Galactic Council kept humanity at arm's length. This capacity for violence, this willingness to fight. Now it would be turned against the Ravagers. "The Council has been informed of our decision," Cole continued. "They've officially condemned our reckless intervention and warned of severe diplomatic consequences. Unofficially, we've received messages of support from several member species. It seems not everyone agrees with the non-interference policy when it comes to genocide." "And what about the Cathorans?" Elena asked. "Have we received any more information from them?" Cole's expression darkened. "Yes, and it's not good. The Ravagers have already begun their approach to the main planet. We've established a secure communication channel, but many of the Cathoran transmission centers have been destroyed." He led her to a communication station where a technician was monitoring incoming Cathoran signals. "However, we've made contact with a group of Cathoran survivors hiding in an asteroid belt at the edge of their system. Dr. Violin is their lead scientist. He's been providing us with tactical information about the Ravagers." The screen showed an alien face, vaguely humanoid, but with iridescent scales instead of skin and large, compound eyes that reflected the light in prismatic patterns. "Dr. Vasquez," the alien said, the translation software rendering his words into accented English. "I am Violin. Your people's courage gives us hope." "Dr. Violin," Elena replied, trying to mask her shock at speaking directly with an alien for the first time. "We're doing everything we can to reach you in time." "The Ravagers have begun their harvest of our outer settlements," Violin said, his voice modulated, but clearly conveying distress. "They use massive ships to strip our worlds of resources, including organic matter. Our people are being processed along with everything else." Elena felt sick at the implication, but forced herself to focus. "Can you tell us anything about their weaknesses? Their tactics?" "They rely on overwhelming force rather than strategy," Violin replied. "Their harvester vessels are well protected but slow. Their defensive ships are faster, but more vulnerable. They do not expect resistance. Few species have ever fought back." "We're not like other species," Cole interjected. "Dr. Violin, we need to know everything you can tell us about their fleet composition, their weapons capabilities, and their command structure." As Valen began to provide details, Elena found herself in a surreal position. Just hours ago, she had been a communications specialist monitoring empty space. Now, she was helping plan a military operation to save an alien civilization. The weight of the responsibility was staggering. After the briefing with Valen, Cole assigned Elena to work with the communications team, refining their understanding of Cathoran language and helping coordinate with the survivors in the asteroid belt. The work was intense and left little time for reflection. But in the quiet moments, Elena found herself wrestling with the transformation of her role. She had dedicated her life to peaceful contact with alien species, to building bridges of understanding. Now, she was part of a military intervention that, while justified, would inevitably involve violence on a massive scale. Having second thoughts? The question came from Captain Jake Morrison, Cole's protege and commander of the destroyer TES Swift Justice. He had joined her in the mess hall during a brief break. "Not second thoughts," Elena replied, pushing her barely touched food around the plate. "Just adjusting. 24 hours ago, I was monitoring empty space. Now we're about to engage in the first interspecies war in human history." Morrison nodded thoughtfully. "It's not the first contact any of us imagined, but sometimes you don't get to choose how history unfolds, only how you respond to it." "And you think this response is right?" Elena asked. "I know it is," Morrison said without hesitation. "The Cathorans asked for help. No one else would answer. What kind of species would we be if we stayed silent too?" Elena considered this. "The kind the Galactic Council expects us to be: isolated, focused on our own interests." "Then I'm glad we're disappointing them," Morrison replied with a grim smile. "Maybe after this, they'll understand what humanity really stands for." Their conversation was interrupted by the ship-wide announcement. "All personnel, prepare for hyperspace transit. Jump sequence initiating in 10 minutes. Morrison stood. "That's my cue. Swift Justice is taking point position. Good luck, Dr. Vasquez." "Good luck, Captain," Elena replied, suddenly aware that many of the people she had met in the last hours might not survive the coming battle. The hyperspace jump took the fleet into the unknown. For 3 days, they traveled through the swirling vortex that allowed faster-than-light travel, the 120 ships of Earth's fleet, maintaining perfect formation despite the challenging conditions. During this time, Elena continued to work with the communications team, refining their understanding of the Cathoran language and helping coordinate strategy with Dr. Valen and the other survivors. She also observed the growing tensions among the fleet's commanders. Some, like Morrison, were fully committed to the intervention on moral grounds. Others were more cautious, concerned about the risks of engaging a numerically superior enemy, or the potential diplomatic fallout with the Galactic Council. A few openly questioned whether humanity should be sacrificing its own people for an alien species. Admiral Cole navigated these divisions with a steady hand, acknowledging concerns while remaining resolute in the mission. "We're not just fighting for the Cthorans," he told his officers during one tense briefing. "We're fighting for the principle that genocide is unacceptable, regardless of who the victims are. Today, it's the Cathorans. Tomorrow, it could be us." On the final day of transit, Cole called Elena to his private quarters. The Admiral looked exhausted, the strain of command evident in the lines around his eyes. But his resolve remained unshaken. "We drop out of hyperspace in 6 hours," he said without preamble. "I wanted to thank you for your work with the Thoran survivors. Their tactical information has been invaluable." "I'm just doing my job, Admiral," Elena replied. "No," Cole said, shaking his head. "Your job was to listen for signals from space, not to help plan a military intervention. You've adapted admirably to circumstances no one could have predicted." Elena shifted uncomfortably under the praise. "May I ask you something, Admiral?" "Of course." "Are we doing the right thing?" The question that had been haunting her finally escaped. "I believe in saving the Cthorans, but we're about to engage in battle against an enemy we barely understand, potentially starting a war that could threaten Earth itself." Cole was silent for a long moment, considering his response. "Dr. Vasquez, when I joined Earth Command, I swore an oath to protect humanity. Nothing in that oath specified that the threats would come from Earth or even our solar system. The Ravagers represent a clear danger to sentient life throughout the galaxy. If they're allowed to continue unchecked, it's only a matter of time before they target human worlds." He moved to the viewport, gazing at the swirling chaos of hyperspace. But more than that, this is about who we are as a species. The Galactic Council has chosen a path of non-interference, of watching as civilizations are destroyed rather than risk involvement. That's not who we are. Humans don't stand by while innocents suffer, not when we have the power to help. Even if it costs human lives, Elena asked quietly. Even then, Cole replied, turning back to face her. Because if we don't act, who will? If we abandon the Thorns to die? What does that say about us? What kind of future would we be building? Elena nodded slowly, finding comfort in his certainty. Thank you, Admiral. Get some rest, Dr. Vasquez, Cole said. When we reach the Cathoran system, we'll need everyone at their best. The final hours before arrival were filled with preparations. The fleet conducted last-minute weapons checks and reviewed battle plans. Marines prepared for potential boarding actions against Ravager vessels. Medical teams readied themselves for casualties. Elena found herself in the command center as the countdown to hyperspace exit began. The atmosphere was tense, but focused, each officer attending to their duties with methodical precision. Exiting hyperspace in 3, 2, 1. The swirling chaos outside the viewports suddenly resolved into the stark blackness of normal space, punctuated by the distant stars and the pale blue glow of Cathora, the planet they had come to save. And surrounding that planet, like a swarm of metal insects, were the ships of the Ravager Collective. Tactical assessment, Cole ordered, his voice calm despite the sight before them. 823 Ravager vessels detected, sir, the tactical officer reported. Disposition matches Dr. Vilen's intelligence. Large harvester ships in orbit around Cathora, defended by smaller combat vessels in a layered formation. Any sign they've detected us? Negative, Admiral. We emerged at the edge of the system as planned. We appear to have achieved surprise. Cole nodded, studying the tactical display. Then we proceed with the operation as planned. All ships, Battle Formation Alpha, destroyers to the front, corvettes to flanking positions, dreadnoughts in reserve. Elena watched as the fleet began to move with practiced precision, each ship taking its assigned position. The destroyers, including Morrison's Swift Justice, formed the tip of the spear, while the nimbler corvettes spread out to the sides. The dreadnoughts, including the Resolute, held position at the rear, their massive weapon systems preparing for long-range engagement. Communications, open a channel to all ships, Cole ordered. When the channel was confirmed open, he spoke, his voice reaching every vessel in the fleet. This is Admiral Cole. In a few minutes, we will engage the enemy to prevent the genocide of the Thoran people. We fight not only for them, but for the principle that life, all life, deserves protection from those who would destroy it without cause or conscience. The Ravagers have never faced a force like ours. They believe themselves invincible because no one has ever stood against them. Today, that changes. Today, humanity shows the galaxy what it means to defend those who cannot defend themselves. Good hunting. Cole out. The channel closed, and Cole turned to the tactical officer. Begin Phase 1. Phase 1 of the battle plan was already in motion. The destroyers accelerated toward a group of Ravager patrol vessels on the outskirts of their formation. The human ships were outnumbered but moved with a coordinated precision that the Ravagers, accustomed to unopposed harvesting operations, clearly lacked. The Swift Justice led the attack, its main batteries firing the first shots of humanity's first interstellar war. Brilliant energy beams lanced across space, striking a Ravager patrol ship and cutting through its hull like paper. They weren't expecting our weapons to be so effective, the tactical officer noted with satisfaction. Their shields are calibrated for much lower energy outputs. Elena watched the tactical display with a mixture of awe and horror as the destroyers tore through the Ravager patrol group. The human ships moved with an aggression and speed that seemed to confuse the Ravagers, who responded with disorganized, ineffective counterfire. Phase 1 complete, the tactical officer reported. Destroyer group reports minimal damage. Ravager outer patrol eliminated. Commence Phase 2, Cole ordered. The corvettes now sprang into action, racing toward the flanks of the main Ravager formation, smaller and faster than the destroyers. They darted between the larger Ravager vessels, targeting propulsion systems and weapons arrays with surgical precision. The goal wasn't to destroy the Ravager ships, but to disable them, creating chaos in their defensive formation. "Admiral," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the Ravagers." "Put it through," Cole said, his expression hardening. The view screen flickered, and an alien figure appeared. The Ravager was insectoid in appearance, with a chitinous exoskeleton and multiple compound eyes. When it spoke, the translation came through as a series of harsh, mechanical phrases. "Human vessels. Your interference is unacceptable. Withdraw immediately or be harvested with the Cthoran biomass." "This is Admiral Marcus Cole of Earth Command," Cole replied, his voice level. "Your genocide of the Cthoran people ends today. Withdraw your forces from this system immediately, or we will destroy them." The Ravager made a sound that the translator didn't attempt to interpret. "You have made a grave error, humans. The Cthora are ours to harvest. The Galactic Council has acknowledged our right to resources." "People are not resources," Cole responded, anger finally showing in his voice. "And Earth acknowledges no such right. This is your final warning." The transmission cut abruptly as the Ravager terminated the connection. "They're moving," the tactical officer reported. "Main Ravager fleet is breaking orbit around Cthora and advancing toward our position. Harvester vessels remain in place." Cole nodded grimly. "They're taking the bait. Phase 3, commence." While the Ravagers had been distracted by the destroyer and corvette attacks, the dreadnoughts had been repositioning, using the planet's gravitational field to accelerate into an attack vector that would bring them within range of the harvester vessels, the true targets of the operation. Now the massive ships, including the Resolute, unleashed their full firepower. Whereas the destroyers and corvettes had employed precision strikes, the dreadnoughts delivered overwhelming force. Massive energy beams and missile salvos streaked toward the harvester vessels, which had been left vulnerable by the repositioning of the Ravager combat ships. The first harvester erupted in a series of explosions as multiple hits breached its hull. Two more followed in quick succession, their destruction sending shockwaves through the Ravager formation. "The Ravager combat ships are reversing course," the tactical officer reported. "They're attempting to return to protect the harvesters." "Too late," Cole murmured, watching as another harvester succumbed to the dreadnought's assault. The battle now entered its most chaotic phase. The Ravager combat ships, rushing back to defend the harvesters, collided with the human destroyers and corvettes that had been systematically dismantling their formation. The result was a massive, swirling melee as ships from both sides engaged at close range. The Resolute shuddered as it took its first direct hit from a Ravager heavy cruiser. "Shields holding at 82%, the tactical officer reported. "Returning fire." Elena gripped the edge of the console, watching as the battle unfolded across multiple displays. The human fleet was clearly inflicting disproportionate damage on the Ravagers, but they were still outnumbered more than 6-1. Casualties were beginning to mount. "TES Indomitable reports critical damage," the communications officer announced. "Captain requests evacuation support." "Designate the Swift Justice for rescue operations," Cole ordered. "Keep the dreadnoughts focused on the harvesters." As the space battle raged, another phase of the operation was beginning. Colonel Amy Rodriguez, commander of the fleet's marine contingent, led drop pods toward the surface of Cthora. Their mission was to secure key locations where Cthorans were being held for processing and to gather intelligence on Ravager ground operations. Elena monitored their communications as the Marines made planetfall. Rodriguez's voice was calm and methodical as she directed her forces to their objectives. Team Alpha, secure the Northern Processing Center. Team Beta, the communications hub. Team Gamma, with me to the central facility. The Marines encountered resistance, but pushed through with the same determination that characterized the space battle. Reports began coming in of Cathorans freed from processing centers, of Ravager ground forces retreating in the face of unexpected resistance. Colonel Rodriguez reports the central processing facility secured. The communications officer announced, 2,000 Cathoran civilians rescued, Ravager forces in disarray. A cheer went up from the command center staff, quickly silenced by a proximity alarm. Ravager cruiser on intercept course, the tactical officer warned. Impact in 10 seconds. Evasive maneuvers, Cole ordered, but it was too late. The Ravager vessel, its systems failing and its hull breached in multiple places, had deliberately set itself on a collision course with the Resolute. The impact sent everyone in the command center sprawling. Emergency klaxons blared as damage reports flooded in. Hull breach on decks 7 through 9, the damage control officer reported. Sealing emergency bulkheads, fire suppression systems engaged. Cole pulled himself back to his feet. Casualties? 23 confirmed, Admiral. 47 injured. Medical teams responding. Elena found herself helping an injured communications officer back to his station. The reality of war, suddenly immediate and visceral. This wasn't just lights on a tactical display anymore. People were dying. But the human fleet was winning. The Ravager formation had collapsed into individual ships, fighting for survival rather than as a coordinated force. The Harvesters, the backbone of their operation, had been reduced to drifting wreckage. The remaining combat vessels were increasingly attempting to flee rather than continue the fight. Admiral, the tactical officer called out. The Ravager command ship is attempting to jump to hyperspace. Cole's eyes narrowed. Not with what they know about us. Target their drive systems. Disable. Don't destroy. I want that ship intact. The Resolute's main batteries fired one final salvo, striking the Ravager command ship with pinpoint accuracy. The alien vessel's engines flared and then died, leaving it drifting in space. Prepare boarding teams, Cole ordered. I want their databases, their navigation records, everything. As the battle wound down, the extent of humanity's victory became clear. Of the 823 Ravager vessels that had been in the Cathoran system, more than 600 had been destroyed or disabled. The remainder had fled, jumping to hyperspace in disorganized retreat. The cost had been significant, but far less than initially feared. 3 human ships had been destroyed, the Indomitable, the Defiant, and the Sword of Terra. 412 personnel had been lost, with hundreds more injured. But they had saved the Cathorans. Of the 3 billion inhabitants of the planet, early estimates suggested that more than 2 billion had survived the initial stages of the Ravager harvest. Dr. Violin and the other survivors emerged from hiding in the asteroid belt to begin the process of rebuilding. In the days that followed, Elena found herself working with the Cathoran survivors, using her communication skills to bridge the gap between human and alien. The Cathorans' gratitude was overwhelming and sometimes difficult to bear. They treated the human forces as saviors, heroes who had appeared in their darkest hour. Meanwhile, the boarding team sent to the Ravager command ship made a discovery that would change the galaxy forever. The Ravagers had kept meticulous records of their harvesting operations, not just of the Cathorans, but of 17 other species they had targeted over the past century. In each case, appeals to the Galactic Council had been met with the same response: non-interference. The death toll across all these genocides exceeded 40 billion sentient beings. When President Hayes of the Terran Union received this information, her response was immediate and unequivocal. She ordered a direct broadcast to every member of the Galactic Council, showing the evidence of the Ravagers' atrocities and the Council's complicity through inaction. For too long, she declared, The powerful have hidden behind principles of non-interference while the vulnerable suffer. Earth will not stand for this. Today, we announce the formation of the Alliance of Free Worlds, a mutual defense pact open to any species that rejects the Council's policy of passive observation in the face of genocide. The response was immediate. 63 species, many of them, like humanity, considered minor powers by the Council, pledged themselves to the Alliance. Even some Council members broke ranks, publicly questioning the wisdom of the non-interference doctrine. The galaxy was realigning itself, and humanity, the Deathworlders, the dangerous species kept at arm's length, was at the center of the shift. 1 month after the Battle of Cathora, Elena found herself back at Luna Station. The facility had been expanded, now serving as both Earth's listening post and a coordination center for the new alliance. Representatives from dozens of species worked alongside human personnel, monitoring space for signs of Ravager activity or other threats. Admiral Cole had been promoted to Fleet Admiral, now commanding not just Earth ships, but the combined forces of the Alliance. Captain Morrison had received command of the rebuilt Indomitable, Colonel Rodriguez, for her heroism in leading the ground assault on Cathora, had been promoted to General and placed in charge of the Alliance's rapid response forces. And Elena had been appointed as Director of Interspecies Communications, responsible for ensuring that the diverse members of the Alliance could coordinate effectively. It was a role that combined her scientific background with the diplomatic skills she had developed during the crisis. As she stood before the newly installed monitoring array, watching the feeds from Alliance ships patrolling the borders of protected space, she reflected on how much had changed in such a short time. Humanity had gone from isolation to leadership, from being feared to being respected, even admired. But the work was far from over. Intelligence gathered from the captured Ravager command ship had led to the location of their home base, a massive space station in a distant sector where they coordinated their harvesting operations across the galaxy. The Alliance now faced a choice: launch a final assault to end the Ravager threat forever, or focus on defending vulnerable worlds from future attacks. It was a decision that would shape the future of the galaxy. And as Elena looked at the stars displayed on the main view screen, she knew that whatever path the Alliance chose, humanity would never again be content to simply listen to the cosmos. They had found their voice, and the galaxy had heard it. The age of passive observation was over. The age of guardians had begun, and when the next desperate plea echoed across the stars, the response would be swift and certain. "We hear you. Hold on. We're coming."